Compare the following: central nervous system and peripheral nervous system, resting potential and action potential, choroid and retina. So students, let us compare these two and find the differences or the similarities among them. The first one is the central nervous system, also called as CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, also called PNS. So the central nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord, which controls the activity of other organs. So together the brain and the spinal cord is called central nervous system. And the peripheral nervous system are the neurons, which is not a part of the central nervous system. The nerves which is distributed in the various parts of the body, which does not belongs to brain and spinal cord, which is not a part of brain and spinal cord, they are called peripheral nervous system, and these are cranial nerves and spinal nerves. The nerves arise from the brain and the nerves arise from the spinal cord. So the central nervous system, it is the main controlling center of the body. It includes brain and the spinal cord. Whereas peripheral system, it does not control the body, but it carries the information from the brain to the various organs and from the various organs to the brain. It coordinates with the central nervous system. Now for this coordination, it has got cranial nerves arising from the brain and spinal nerves arising from the spinal cord. So these are the difference between CNS and PNS. The next one is resting potential and action potential. Now these two terms are related with the nerve impulse. So when a nerve impulse is generated across the axon, there is a difference in the distribution of the ions, the sodium ions and the potassium ions. So this is related to resting potential and action potential. The word resting potential refers to the charge difference between inside the axon and the outside the axon. So in a resting potential, the inside of the axon is negatively charged and the outside of the axon is positively charged. That means there is a charge difference between the inside of the axon and outside. And this is caused by the channels which is present on the plasma membrane. So these channels are more permeable to potassium ions. The axons, when it is rest, it is more permeable to potassium ions than sodium ions. Therefore, the inside of the axon will have more of potassium ions and less of sodium ions, whereas outside the axon will have more of sodium ions and less of potassium ions. Therefore, there is a difference in the charge. The outside will be positively charged and inside will be negatively charged. And this is called resting potential. It is the potential difference across the nerve fiber, that is inside the axon and outside the axon. When the neuron is at rest, that means when the neuron is not conducting an impulse. So the difference will be the inside is negatively charged and outside is positively charged. And this difference is due to the permeability of the membrane. The membrane at rest is more permeable to potassium ions than to the sodium ions. Now coming to the action potential. The action potential is referred to the potential difference across the nerve fiber, that is inside the axon and outside the axon, when there is a conduction of nerve impulse. So when the nerve impulse is present, when the nerve impulse is conducting, it is formed. So the difference between the inside of the axon and outside of the axon is called action potential. So when an action potential is present or when a nerve impulse is present, the inside of the axon becomes positively charged and outside becomes negatively charged. That means here at this time when the nerve impulse is present or when the nerve impulse is carried, the axon membrane becomes permeable to sodium ions, more permeable to sodium ions than compared to potassium ions. So whenever there is an electrical impulse, the sodium gated channels. So these sodium, so here we can see these are the sodium gated channels which are closed in a resting membrane potential. These sodium gated channels open when an action potential is there, allowing the sodium ions to enter inside the axon. When sodium ions enter inside the axon, the inner region of the axon becomes more positively charged. So this generates an action potential, and this causes the next channel to open. So from here also again more sodium ions enter inside. So the next region becomes positively charged, and this is how the action potential is carried throughout the length of the axon. So these are the difference between resting and action potential. In resting potential, the charge difference in the nerve fiber when there is no nerve impulse. And during this, the inside is negatively charged and outside is positively charged. So the axon, the membrane is more permeable to potassium when compared to sodium. So the action potential is the charge difference along the nerve fiber when there is a nerve impulse. So inside will be positively charged and outside will be negatively charged. So during this, the sodium membrane channels are open and the membrane becomes more permeable to sodium ions when compared to potassium ions. The next one is choroid and retina. So choroid and retina are the layers present on the eye. So choroid is the middle vascular layer of the eye. Retina is the innermost layer of the eye. So here we can see the outermost layer is called sclera, the middle layer is choroid and inner layer is retina. So choroid is supplied with the blood vessel, so it is called as vascular layer of eye. And retina, which is the innermost layer of eye, it has three regions, a layer of ganglion, bipolar neurons and the photoreceptor cells. So the choroid contains numerous blood vessels. So with the blood vessels, the nutrients and oxygen is supplied to the retina. So retina is not supplied with the blood vessels, but it gets its nourishment through the blood vessels which is present in the choroid and to the other tissues in the eye, not only to the retina. So these nutrients and oxygen is also supplied to the other tissues present in the eye. In the retina, photoreceptor cells are present. So the photoreceptor cells, the rods and cones are present. They are responsible for the night and day visions, the color and black and white visions. They've got photosensitive pigments, that is visual pigments, rhodopsin and iodopsin. So these are sensitive to the bright lights and dim lights, giving the vision. And the optic nerve, which conveys the information to the brain, is also present in the region that is retina. The choroid is the middle layer and retina is the last layer. So choroid is thin in the posterior end. In the anterior end, it becomes thicker, giving rise to ciliary bodies, and it has got a colored segment which is called as iris. So this region is also responsible for the color of the eye. That is, we have blue color, black color, brown eyes. So these eyes are due to the presence of the iris, which is also present in the choroid layer. So these are the differences